Hello and welcome to Hello World tutorial part 3, hooking up UI. So far we've written our server object, hello SO, and it receives a message and updates its greeting. And we wrote the test for that, that sends it a message and asserts that that greeting has been updated. And now we want to actually use this server object with user interface. So that means we're going to hook it up into our Unity hierarchy. So um, let's do that now. First, we create a new scene. We'll call it Hello World SO. And we're going to um, save this. Hello World. We're going to create an empty game object. Call this controller. And now we're going to add a component. This is going to be a new script. We're going to call it Hello World Controller. Create an add. And let's go into Hello World Controller. And we see the typical template. So our controller is going to need a couple of things. It's going to need an instance to syncer. Syncer is basically the object that lets us talk to server objects, and we're going to have a hello SO. And now we need to change up our using block a little bit to allow for these things. And within our start method, we're going to get we have to use create syncer to get an instance of syncer, and we have to use syncer.sync to get an instance of hello SO, and we're going to have to add async in front of start, so it allows this await. And the next thing we want to do is, if you look at our test, we did this line of code where we basically sent a message. So we're going to send that message, but this time we're going to do it on button click. So we're going to create a new function, call it send name. We're going to attach a button to that, and oh, sorry, syncer.send wait. Okay, so here's the line of code. We do not need to do a await send wait. We did an await send wait in our test because the line after the await send wait assumed that the message had been consumed and processed, but here we don't need to do that, so we can do a syncer.send. Syncer.send is not awaited, it is fire and forget. And this needs to be the ID, so we can just say hello so.id. Okay, and we've basically coded up our controller at this point. And before we go very much further, I want to show you a very important tool for this phase, and it's called the Data Store Explorer. So one thing Game Plumbing Framework does for you is it takes fields from server objects and puts them in the data store. And then when you hook up UI, you hook it up into the data store, and Game Plumbing Framework makes sure everything stays in sync for you automatically. So it's really valuable to be able to look in the data store and say, what's going on? So we're doing that now, and there's actually nothing in the data store. And the reason there's nothing is because we need to add a little line of code. So let's go back to our server object, and we just need to add this attribute which gives it a data store path. So the attribute's called data store path, and here we're just gonna call it sync.hello. You can actually call it anything, and it's going to now automatically all of the things like greeting, and if we had, let's say, 100 other fields, they would be updated in the data store, which means we can easily get to them from our, as we're hooking up UI. So now if we go back, we see that there's still nothing in the data store, but it just did a little recompile. And if we run this test, let me make sure I'm on. Just making sure I'm on simulated mode real quick. So I'm going to run this test. And if we look at hello world test.default, we'll see that um, it does have a greeting. So keep an eye on the Data Store Explorer as you are hooking things up into UI, because that's basically our source of truth for what values should be. So now we want to set up two pieces of UI. Firstly, a text component that's going to show us the greeting on the server object, and second, a button that lets us send that message so we can watch that greeting change. Now here's the really cool thing. We are done writing code at this point. So if you look at our documentation for hooking up UI, you'll notice we have these things called view bindings. And view bindings let us display and create UI based on certain fields within the state of the SO. So today we're going to use text VB, which will bind text from SO string field. But there's also a text input view binding, an image view binding. If you have a list of data, you can use list VB. Or if you want to animate an item as it changes, for example, you just got 10 coins and you want some kind of animation, we have animation VB. And you can even write your own view bindings, but I think you'll find for the most part, once you get the SO right and you write your controller, you're pretty much done writing code. So this is a great time to hand the project off to somebody who might not be as good with the advanced engineering aspects, but is also probably stronger with using just Unity and taking care of the visual part. So let's go back to Unity. Under Hello World, in the hierarchy window, select Hello World, go Game Object, UI, Canvas. It added Canvas and an event system. Within Canvas, let's go Game Object, UI, Text. Now we have a text field. Let's give it a default value. Hello default. This will help us confirm that our view binding is doing what it needs to do. Let's add our view binding, text VB. This is the Game Plumbing Factory view binding, and we just want to bind it to our data path. So if we come back here, remember that our data path is sync.hello, and we're going to bind it to the greeting field. So sync.hello.greeting, and let's save that and let's run it and let's see if that worked. And it says what's your name, which if we look back at our code, this was the default value. To get it to change, we have to send it a message, and we've hooked a function up to do that. We just need to initiate it with a button. So let's go do that now. So under Canvas, Game Object, UI, Button, and we just need to scoot this guy over a little bit so we can see our original text. And now we need to hook him up to the function. Hello world controller, send name. Now let's play this. what's your name? Hello world, exactly. So what we have done in this video is we've seen how simple it is to take working server objects and get them hooked up to UI. Specifically, we created a controller that would send messages to those server objects, and we've created some UI that either, in the case of this button, that is hooked up to the controller, so it's able to send a message, and in the case of this greeting, uses our view binding system where it's where everything's all automatically updated for you, and all you need to do is, by using our autocomplete interface, hook the SO up to a view binding. Thank you very much.